welcome everyone to this session. We'll talk about Kubernetes as a platform for running developer tools. This is something we have been working for some time. So this is basically our feedback on that. But first of all, let's present ourselves.
Yeah, hello folks. My name is Ilya. I'm software engineer at Red Hat, and I'm also Eclipse Che committer. I develop workspaces OpenShift.com. It's by far the easiest way to try Eclipse Che online. It's part of a larger ecosystem, which is called Developer Sandbox. That basically allows you to learn and play Kubernetes and OpenShift. If you are interested in that, we invite you to our next session, which is deploy and update microservices on the fly using cloud dev tools. It's happening today later on. So yeah, thank you, and really glad to see you today.
And my name is Loriedo. I work as Ilya for Red Hat, and we both work on Eclipse Che since a few years. And I'm also active on the CNCF Foundation, and I'm an ambassador for that foundation since a few months. And let's get started. So this is the story of our team. This is the story of Ilya, of myself, and a lot of other people that have been working on Eclipse Che, and in particular, working on running Eclipse Che on top of Kubernetes. And but let's get a step back, and let's try to find out what's the vision, what's the reason for Eclipse Che. So this is a citation from a book, The Phoenix Project. Has someone read this book here? Okay, I just see one hand. This is a great book. It's great because for the first time, so at least for me, I was reading a fiction that was talking about us developer, about the struggling of being able to deliver software, all the problems that we face. So it tells about the story of a software project, the Phoenix projects. And what it tells, so what resonated for me was that this is something we struggle in all enterprises. I've been consulting before being a developer at Red Hat. And on enterprises I was a consultant for, there was always difficulties on setting up the development environment. It could take weeks to do that. So it was not an exaggeration. So it really resonated with me. Taking 3 or 4 weeks for new developers to get builds running on their machine. Right, so with that in mind, Che mission was that anyone, anytime, should be able to contribute to a project without installing or configuring software. Right. Right, so that was at the origin of the project at the time. So this is about automating somehow the setup of a development environment. So we needed to find a platform that Che could leverage to automate the provisioning of development environments. That could be virtual machine. So Vagrant was popular, it's still popular today, but yeah, at the time when the project started, VM were probably the best choice. And so it could be virtual machine, but it also could be containers. So containers allow you to start lightweight, isolated environment. Or environment managers. So there are like VM virtual env for Python, or Nix, or there are a lot of tools that allow you to have an isolated environment in your file system without the need of containers or virtual machine. Or we can also go to more complicated solution, like the configuration managers, like Puppet, Chef, Ansible, SoulStack, etc. But guess what? What did we choose? Containers and Kubernetes. Actually, the very first implementation of Che was using virtual machine. But a few years ago, I would say 7 years ago, approximately, we decided to switch to containers. And maybe a couple of years later, after running Che on Docker Swarm, we actually decided to use Kubernetes as the main platform to run development environment. So that brings it to, OK, so we have chosen Kubernetes. And why have we chosen Kubernetes? What are the benefits of Kubernetes? These are the pros. So I will let Ilya talk about that.
Yeah, thank you, Mario, for the nice introduction. So let's talk about pros of Kubernetes and why we have chosen that. So first of all, it's open source. And this is a no-brainer. So currently, we are in an open source landscape. And in order to be successful, we need to choose something that is open source, obviously. Secondly, it has very, very large community built around the CNCF foundation with dozens of great projects in it. Third one, it's vendor neutral, so there is no one big company behind it. So many vendors has their own enterprise versions of the Kubernetes. It's like Microsoft, Red Hat, and many others. The third one is that Kubernetes is extensible, and this is really important for us because we see container development environments as a Kubernetes objects, so that you can use kubectl to manipulate with your container development environment. So you can do kubectl get my dev workspace. You can do kubectl delete my workspace. You can do kubectl update my workspace. And this is really, really important for us. Third one, Kubernetes is resource efficient, so it uses intricate scheduling algorithms to make sure that your resources are used properly. And it's important that Kubernetes is also scalable, and it allows you multiple scaling options, starting from replica set, going to the pod horizontal autoscalers, and cluster autoscalers when the worker nodes are provisioned as you need. And the last but not least, it's portable. So no matter what infrastructure you're using, it could be used on-prem, it could be used in the public cloud, it could be used in the hybrid cloud. So this is very, very important. And with that, I think I pass it over to Mario, who is going to introduce the cons that we faced during the development and during the switch to Kubernetes.
OK, so now the interesting part. Yeah, the problems, all the problems that we have faced with Kubernetes. So first of all, just to clarify, so it's not about running developer tools on Minikube or on containers on your laptop. This is easy. But this is more like on enterprise cluster, where the cluster has been secured and is patched against any vulnerability, is multi-tenant. And so when you run something, it's completely unprivileged. And it's unprivileged, and it's behind. So the networking of the cluster, it is not directly accessible. You only can get through routes or ingress to the cluster. So to make it possible to run development environment, so this is the architecture of a cloud development environment, shader cloud development environment. So first of all, we need containers. So a development container, it can have like Maven or Go or whatever development tool you need. So it's really the tool where the container where you will have Git, etc. And here, we automatically mount the IDE and execute the IDE inside the IDE server. You can also augment your development environment with runtime containers, where you can run some databases or a web server, etc., where you actually will be able to test your application. So you will be able to have microservices that are needed by your application, so you're able to test it. So it's a full development environment running in a pod with and probably in the target platform if your target platform is Kubernetes. For the source code or any change to be persisted, even when you go and get a coffee and you want to get back, or if you, like the morning, you want to find the changes that you have done the day before, you need persistence. And for that, in Kubernetes, you need to have persistent volume. So we need a persistent volume that need to be attached to every container. So that's another, the second component. So there are containers, there is persistent volumes. And the third one, important one, is the ingress. So you need an ingress, a service and an ingress that allow you to access your development environment from the browser of your laptop. So once you have all of that, you can open your browser and you can have access to VS Code. So we automate, so Eclipse Che automate the creation of those pods. So you click on a button in your browser and Che provision this pod. All right, so we have divided the problems in three sections. The first section, it's about running a container, an unprivileged container on Kubernetes. So what are the problems with that? Well, there are a few. So we have listed a few. So those are things that we have struggled and we continue struggling with. First of all, it's unprivileged. So if you are running a completely arbitrary and unprivileged user, you may, so most of the time, if the container image hasn't been designed, so hasn't been modified to actually allow an unprivileged user to run the development tools, it will fail. Commands will fail. Application will fail to start. So that's one of the first things, and it's kind of subtle error. You don't understand at the beginning what's happening there, but yeah, most of the time, if you take something from the Docker Hub, any container, it's not been designed to run as an unprivileged user. Second problem is out-of-memory problem. It's not like on your laptop that, yeah, it's at some point your application start to run slow or it doesn't get memory and you see some errors. No, the application gets completely killed. So your pod gets killed. So you use too much memory, boom, it's killed. And you don't understand what's happening. It's like, okay, Che's not working. What's happening here? It's that you need to specify carefully memory, otherwise it will be killed. Same thing for CPU. CPU is different because, yeah, it would be too easy. They have done the same reaction if you're using too much CPU as if you're using too much memory. No, different things. CPU, if you're using too much CPU, your process gets throttled. It means that it gets just a few milliseconds every second of CPU, so it gets slower and slower, and you don't understand why. You don't know if that's Che or if that's a plugin or what. No, it's just the system that it's seeing that you are requesting too much CPU and it's slowing you down. Just that. A fourth one, immutable. So you're not able to, when you have your container running, you're not able to install new tools. You should not change. This is a good thing because it makes your development environment repeatable. But on the other hand, it's kind of frustrating. You just want to try out a new version of something. You probably need to rebuild the image. Then the other important things things that we may be able to address, we'll see that later, is like being able to run Docker, Docker build, and Docker run. So those are things that don't work. It's like being able to do Docker in Docker as you do on your laptop. It's not as easy in Kubernetes. So it can be done, but as you will see, this is something that today it's on most enterprise clusters. No, you are not going to be able to do Docker run. Docker build, we're close to that, but yeah, still you need some privilege that are not default. And the last one is that containers should be fast, lightweight, but you need to pull the image first. So you may, if you have a slow network, it may take 5 minutes to pull an image, and you're there waiting. Okay, but wasn't it supposed to be fast? So we needed to think about techniques to pre-pull images. All right, with that, so I will just do a short, really short, I hope, demo about one of those problems. Yeah, so this is a Che workspace. It's like how it appears if you start a Che workspace. I have a Quarkus project, but it doesn't really matter. Here, the source code is not important. What I will try to do is that, so I will open the command palette, and I will run the test. So I will try to run some tests on Maven test, okay? The Maven test, so actually this is Quarkus project, so it's using test containers behind the hood. So it's trying to start a container with Postgres, and it failed. So I'm happy because I'm really good at demoing errors. So it kind of worked. Like we see that there is an error, but it tried to run a container. It says build failure, but it can. Let me just make it bigger. It's difficult to understand what's going on here. Yeah, it says that container startup failure, all right? So, but how? So, aren't the containers supposed to build once and run everywhere? So why it's failing here? All right. So, what can we do? I will show you what's actually the problem, but it's kind of difficult to find it out. So I have another task that will allow me to show to watch the pods. I have a couple of pods in my here in my namespace, and these are like Che workspaces, so nothing special. But we'll have a look at it. And then the second thing that I want to do is that I would like to retrieve the logs of the test containers. Okay, so let me try to put them side by side. No. Actually. Okay. All right, so with that, so I have my pods here. I'm trying to retrieve the logs, and I will just open another terminal. I'll just do Maven test, and I will see what's going on. So yeah, I see that there is a pod created, container created, and there are errors, and then they get terminated right away. So what's happening is, so I see it from the logs that actually the database is trying to fix the var_lib Postgres data, and it's failing to do that because the operation is not permitted. So that is something that happened a few days ago. So, and how are you going to fix that? So the problem is that the image, the Postgres image, is not designed to run in a cluster where it's you have no privilege. So the user is running with really unprivileged permissions. So that said, I will quickly get back to the slides and just rapidly mention that we have, so these are all the solution with Eclipse Che that we have. We're not going through all the solution for those problems that we have actually applied. But yeah, we kind of, for some there are things that work really well. For others are like just to work around. But yeah, that's the how we have fixes those problems currently. So next section of problems, I will let Ilya talk about it.
Yeah, the next problem is persistent volumes. So you need to store your codes somewhere in the cloud, right? And for that, you need persistent volumes. So first of all, you should be very, very careful with the storage classes. There are multiple offerings of storage classes and storage backends that can be used, but some of them are not suited for container development environment. That's it, so be careful. Second, volumes has different access rights. So it can be read-write once or read-write many. Also be careful, so if you want to have multiple concurrent workspaces and you have read-write once access mode, you won't be able to run them. Second is, is the mount time. Volume mount is time-consuming operation, so be ready that if you use storage backend and you use persistent volumes, that container development environment startup would be not blazingly fast, because for mounting a volume you need, it's getting better, but you need some seconds. And quotas, the last thing. So of course, storage is not that expensive as memory, but you still have to pay for that. And if you need a persistent volume to be provisioned for every single container development environment, you could run out of storage. And if you need multiple concurrent workspaces, so you need more and more storage. For example, in our own dogfooding cluster, we started with 600 gigs, and it was not enough at some point, and now we have more than 1 terabyte. And solution for those challenges is basically, for our case, for Eclipse Che, we use block storage, which works very well. We have different storage strategies for that can be like per user, and you have one persistent volume per user or per workspace, but you can run multiple concurrent workspaces. For mount timeout, there are things that we are evaluating. So first of all, you can run ephemeral workspaces, which use empty-dir Kubernetes volumes, and that are very fast, so you don't trap into mount timeout errors. And there is a solution for asynchronous storage, which is currently experimental. So you start with an empty dir, and in the background, the source code of the that you use inside the workspace, so it's copied to the persistent volume. And for quotas, so if user hit a quota, we should fail fast, and it should be clear why we fail with explicit error message. And with that, we can see the quick demo of the problem we had with Gluster. Initially, so you see, I cloned the TIA, and we run yarn, and yarn generates many files in a very, very short period of time. And you see we have an error here, so it's unexpected error corrupted file already exists. So that's a problem. With EBS, we don't have it. So be careful that your storage need to be suited for your needs. And with that, I pass it over to Mario again.
Thank you. All right, so last class of problems related to the networks, to the fact that now so your development environment is behind the reverse proxy. So what's the issue with that? So there are a few kind of issues. So the first one is that the URL can be rewritten, means that the external URL that the user sees from his browser is not what the URL that actually the application sees, meaning that externally you can end a path because there could be path routing. So the external route can have an extra path. So the application will see in the request that routes, and that can be something that may not work. Also from the port point of view or the host name. So the application needs to be designed to be aware that there is an external external address, external URL to access it that is different from the internal URL that is available from within the Kubernetes cluster. TLS certificate, that's another class of problems. So like if every time that you create a workspace, you create a new host name, you have a new host name, so my workspace at my Che instance. That will need a new TLS certificate for every new workspace that you create. Every time you create a new pod, you need a new certificate. And that, so you're not able to have valid certificate signed on the fly, so it will be super complicated. So that also was a problem that we had to solve. Ingress readiness, same thing. So the routes are not something that are there available. They are going to be created. So the endpoint is created, and it can take time to create. And sometimes for load balancing, you have multiple reverse proxy, and one may be ready and the other one may not. So you may at one point you get one response, and the other point you get not ready yet. So yeah, we had to write some resiliency code, so to retry actually to make sure that the route were ready before saying to the user, yeah, you can go and get and access to your development environment. Same things as for the volumes. So ingress are resources that are limited. So there are some quotas that usually administrators set. So if at some point the user try to create too many workspaces, there may be too many ingress created, and it will fail because it exceeds the quota of the ingresses. These are also for the different solutions for those problems that we have applied in the last years with our experience on that. And I will so the slides are anyway on the website, so you can have a look at it. So I don't want to go too in deep on the solution, but I will just show rapidly another example. So this was my old workspace, so I will close this one. I don't need it. And this is another workspace that I have. In this case, it's a Ruby application. Could be anything. But so I was working on that a few weeks ago, and I got this error. So I say, okay, it will be. So I had to try to fix it. So I fixed it, but at least the time was valuable because I could show you the problem here. So what I will do is I will use the command palette again to start the task. So I have a first task that actually gets the prerequisite. So I will try to run this Ruby on Rails application here. Okay. So I have the first task. Second task will help me to run the application. It's just a command, the classic command that you use to start the Ruby on Rails application. All right, so you see the application has started. The IDE tells me that if I want to open it, so I click on it. Do you want to open it in another tab? Yes, of course. And it's not available. I don't know.
Maybe HTTP.
Oh, yes. Okay, so all right. So the thing is that, yeah, using HTTP, I was able to access the application, but actually, it was not authorizing me. It was expecting me to have to come from localhost or from a local interface. But yeah, I have no idea that I had to do that. So I usually, on my laptop, I just do that command. So how I can solve this problem? So you need to resolve those problems. You need to understand that there is a reverse proxy, and you need to find the address for that, and then you need to instruct your application so that it's able to to accept requests also from that request. All right. So let's move back to the slides. And let's talk about so we have seen the pros, the cons. Now we're going to look at the new opportunities. What Kubernetes brings new features that will allow us to improve the experience.
Yeah, we talked about autoscalers as the pros of Kubernetes, but as any feature, we need to play nicely with it. So we need to apply a nice UX. So for example, when you have a cluster autoscaler and yet another node is provisioned, obviously your container development environment startup would be longer because it takes time to provision a node. Also, the same story with new feature pod horizontal autoscaler. So when you don't specify CPU and memory limits, but you specify that this feature, like horizontal pod autoscaler, is going to be used. So at some point, it will be restarted with more resources. So again, you need to think about user experience and how you would play with that. The next is ephemeral containers.
Yeah, let's. So we don't have a lot of time, so I will go really quickly about that. So these are like ephemeral containers has been released recently in Kubernetes and allow to add containers on an existing pod. So for our use case, it would be really interesting to add development tools inside containers where the application is running, so that you will be able to debug your application while it's running. No, I don't know. Okay, yeah, did the. All right. So other two features. These are like alpha features in Kubernetes. So we really cannot use that on the customer clusters. There are user namespaces that allow you to run as root inside the containers because actually you're an unprivileged user for the host. This is something that is not activated by default. So it's an alpha feature. We don't have it. So we are pushing to have it on Kubernetes, to move it to beta. Hopefully it will be available soon as a beta feature. And the last thing, so the same thing still for, this is really for running container inside container. For nested containers is to be able to mount the proc file system inside the containers that will allow to Docker run to work, because currently is really not working, and that's, so those two last things cannot make it possible today. Right, so conclusion, is it worth it? So I was looking for an icon, so an emoji for like it depends, and this is what I actually found. So it depends. I hope that you have your idea. So we have provided a lot of inputs, I guess. Just to recap, this is a list of things that surprises us with cons and with pros, like the things that actually are good about Kubernetes. And I want to, so what really I think make the difference is the last thing, is that Kubernetes is evolving rapidly, and with user namespaces and mounting, being able to mount /proc will really enable the development environment to be really on parity with the desktop environment. That said, I think we have couple of minutes for question, if you have any question. There is one question.
Yesterday there was some BOF session regarding IDE in the browser or in the cloud. I think it was called Eclipse Che as the overall. Are you in contact with them?
Yeah. So I mean, to be clear, so what Che does, it's our team doesn't develop IDE anymore. So we used to have our own IDE. We have been contributing a lot to TIA in the past, but now our goal is really, we want to provision development environment running on Kubernetes. We start an IDE. It can be TIA, it can be VS Code, it can be IntelliJ. So today, by default, it's because we do not have anyone that is able to maintain TIA as an IDE running in, by default, it's not possible to do that. But you can customize, so the development environment are customizable, so you can choose your IDE, and you can run TIA. We have been doing that in the past. It's still possible today. Does that answer your question? OK, cool. Yeah. Thanks, everyone. I think we're running out of time, so thanks. See you later.
Thank you.